I guess the planar reflection is rendering the sun, but the sun is outside of the light map radius or something like that. Maybe it has to do with the shadow maps for that sun. So if we have the sky sphere and we have this sky sphere itself, cast shadow is true for it. Alright, so what's happening is the shadow, we're rendering that sun or something, and that's going to be what's going on is our sky sphere is rendering over this thing. So something is throwing away. We're not applying the shadow to the sky sphere for some reason. Alright, so there are no shadows in the world. And this is what renders. There are no lights in the world, and this is what renders. A brilliant orb. So this thing is going to render. Even if there are no lights, because it's emissive. Because it's emissive, it's not going to receive shadows. Yeah, okay, so because this object is emissive, it doesn't receive the shadow, which would be from the waterfall in front of it, so it gets rendered here. And the reason that this doesn't draw that is because we're occluding that thing. So we need something that's going to occlude the sun behind it, and that would normally be drawing things to the screen. So we can't have a hidden object cast a shadow because it's not a shadow problem, it's an occlusion problem. So if we went to the planar reflection and we said don't reflect the sky sphere, what would it look like? That's kind of crazy to think about, is it's not a shadow problem, it's a rendering problem. It's rendering the object, and it needs to occlude. And the only way it occludes is if it actually does that. So is there a way to get this thing to block, to occlude? I mean, it's basically like, we want it to occlude only the sky sphere? Yeah, we have use as occluder. So if we have this thing, visible false, it's supposed to render in the depth pass, but use as occluder. Let's see, with our sky sphere here, for our sky sphere object, render in main pass, treat as background for occlusion. Oh, okay, so I can actually go to this blueprint of this thing, and maybe I can fix some of these things with treat as background. So its shadows don't work with emissive objects and reflections. That's what I should search for. Shadows don't work with emissive objects and reflection. Alright. Emissive light, weird shadows. Let's see. Well, let's see. If we went to the sky sphere and we changed the celestial, like it's inside of day, isn't it? Like I guess it's inside of celestial. Celestial size is 0. I mean, if we just had like a tiny sun, would that work at all? It's a lot less noticeable that it's broken. So let's think about this for. This looks kind of cool. Which part of it are you thinking is starting to look decent? And let's see if the translucency volume stuff actually does work for this. So if we go to our test water surface, we change our multiplication opacity mask to use this. We hit apply. Yeah, we're getting our shadow. It's looking correct. You know, we're not supposed to have anything going on here. And this is because the emissive layer outside is drawing regardless of any shadows. So we're getting our shadows, but the emissive layer is coming through. Well, let's see if we use if this is a translucent layer for this thing, if we can still get some shadows coming off of it. Thank you for hosting, Karakan. Massive lag? That might, again, be just because I'm clicking in and out of the editor. And then it'll go all slow and everything else. What is going on with this? Okay, that is just really weird that we get shadows on these objects as soon as they're here. Like, what? Ah, it's all good. Thank you for hosting me, by the way. Man, I guess shadows are all sorts of screwed up in this thing. Like it's just translucent objects do weird shit. Well, that's just a nuts thing that happens. So let's see, this thing is hidden shadow, shadow two-sided. It's not visible, so it's casting shadows. And it's doing what it should. Man, what a thing, huh? So, and even then it's not actually accurate. It's not taking the right stuff for that sky. Because it's not a shadow problem, it's an occlusion problem. Is there anything that we can do about this? I don't think so. I think we're kind of just hosed on it. So we kind of fake it a little bit, with some masked shadows. This is there's a hidden object here which is actually casting these shadows using a masked material. Can you put a refraction on the reflection? Well, what exactly do you mean by that? Like, refraction is light passing through it, right? So I don't think you're asking for refraction. So I'm not really sure what you're asking for there. The light does not get distorted by passing through the waterfall, it just gets blocked. Right. That's because there's not light passing through the waterfall. There is an emissive reflection. Right? It's not light coming in. It's rendering the scene from the perspective of the water, and it just sees that there's stuff there. There's nothing occluding it, so there's no refraction. So you're saying, can we refract the shadows and make them do weird things, right? Would be to make this appear kind of wavy and all sorts of weird crap like that, I'm guessing is what you're saying. The answer is kind of. But it wouldn't be a refraction, like. And this is without a planar reflection. And it's just, yeah, it's not doing the same thing. It's doing the same problem, which is the emissive layer there. So basically, this is our masked thing. This is just going to render as a mask. So that's what that does. What you're talking about is we should have some sort of noise layer that comes in with these shadows to simulate the refraction sort of stuff. Well, let me think. Thank you for following Worky Mind. I'm kind of at the end of my usefulness for my mind at the moment. I've been working for almost 10 hours on stuff collectively today, and all of it's been pulling teeth, so I'm about toast. What we're trying to do right now is we're trying to do shadows on this thing with our reflection, and the problem is Unreal's shadows aren't working properly because the shadows are not occluding the sky sphere in the background because it's an emissive light, not a direct light. So yeah, it would be some distortion or noise is what we're gonna want, right? So we should grab like a texture sample of just like some noise or some crap, right? So let's see, where is just noise? We have a noise cube map and we have a Perlin noise texture, which is in starter content. So let's actually take this into test content. Water, let's copy a noise texture in here. So let's just do water noise text. Alright, so we're going to throw this texture in here. And how should we use this texture? I mean, we could throw it in the world position offset. Allows the vertices of a mesh. We don't really want that. We want like a pixel offset, right? Like the vertices here are just garbage. Like that's the whole point, is that it's pixel perfect. So if we just had the opacity mask be noise, that's not really what we want. We basically want to deform this thing by some noise and slide it across or something like that. So we want like the noise to affect the UV coordinates. So we've got like this texture sample right here. So if we have this thing, I'd like to move this out of the way. We take this texture sample for noise. We want to make float 3 out of it. And then we want to make a float 2 out of this thing. I guess just make float 2 out of it. So something along these sorts of lines, right? Maybe? Let's see, the water speed is 0.5. I mean, is it something along those sorts of lines that you're thinking about? I mean, yeah, I kind of see what you're talking about. Is we want a noise texture as well as this thing, so we pretty much just want to have a noise happen here. We want to add like a little bit based on the noise of this thing. Like we've got this noise texture and it goes blah blah blah. Well, if we multiplied this thing by like 0.1 or something, and then we added it in here, then we hooked it up, we get something like this. You know, it retains the basic original shape, but it's got some noise added into it. And I think that might have a better effect. And what we should be able to do is go to our, it should be, the water speed should be 0.5. What's the water speed on this one? It's also 0.5. Why is it so damn fast though? Comparatively. Let's unhide it. It's so damn fast because it's correct. How weird is that? Alright, so we need to have this thing again be visible. I mean, I would expect this shadow to match the reflection, though. Hmm. So, I mean, we can kind of fake it like that, and it looks pretty much right. It's so pretty. Hello, Lucas. We're trying to figure out how to get shadows working with planar reflections and have it not look completely like crap. A month ago? Well, then you missed out on a lot of stuff. Because this is just one piece that we've been working on here, which is water, well, waterfalls to be specifically. The other level that actually I think looks a lot better at the moment is these grasslands at night that we put together. Looks a lot cooler. This is stuff that would turn into actual levels. And that's all with garbage art. That's like art that I took that Adam thinks is all trash and turned it into something I think looks halfway decent. So his tools, he'll be able to make it look a lot better than what I've got. And a lot of this stuff here where stuff's offset and looks kind of wrong can be fixed by not having the water texture be all streaky and stuff. It can be like kind of more straight and it can work. So I think that sort of effect will work on this thing. Yeah, and the previous one also, like the grasslands at night, we can also mess with the background. I can make the time of day change. So time of day advance to be like 1. And then we can have like our daytime and nighttime scenes on the same map. And all that. The idea being not that we would really have the day-night transition stuff. It's more that we can set the sky sphere to the time of day we want and then cook it properly and all that. It's pretty much what we're probably going to be doing. So this will help us just kind of figure out a basic thing, and then for each level we kind of customize it a bit. So we'll be good to go with that after we're done. Is Firewatch in Unreal 4? I would assume it's either Unreal 4 or Unity. It's looking okay. Will someone collect your mind? Well, I don't know. If they're over in Denmark, I won't be there for a while. You know, let's let's just paint on some crap here. Let's throw some mushrooms on stuff because I feel like having cool looking things. I'll rebuild that. They're in Unity? Yeah, alright. They kind of look like they're in Unity. I'm not saying Unity looks bad, I'm just saying, you know, it looks a certain way. Alright, so we got, you know, our baked in mushrooms doing their mushroomy thing. I think that's probably going to do it for the shadows on those waterfalls then. What was the other stuff that I was looking at for the waterfall? And it's not a shadow thing, it's an emissive light reflection thing with occlusion. Shadows properly cast from waterfall, be like, well, it is getting properly cast. It's just, we want the normal rotation properly set up so that we can actually rotate our object. So we need like our basis vectors for world space and all that. It's not lag, it's, I'm not clicked into the editor. So when I click into the editor, it'll render at a higher frames per second. So if you're wondering, it's probably that I have something else clicked open. So like I click off of it, I might be messing with something else. So yeah, I think the normal rotation stuff, I'll only take a look at what it would take to do that. Alright, so what we need are two basis vectors, and this float component, we're going to basically multiply this float3 component by our basis vectors. And our basis vectors would be normally y, one in the y and one in the z. So what happened is we'd only take, you know, the y for this thing and the z for the other. So we're going to want two basis vectors. And what we're going to do is we're going to transform our basis vectors from what they are to something that's modified by the rotation of the parent object. And in that way, we'll rebase our texture coordinates into the right, you know, dimensional space. So we're going to need our... I'm going to put this in material. We're going to need two things. It's going to be a Y basis, and this will be a linear color, because that's how you pass in vectors. We'll duplicate this one. This will be our... Alright, so yeah, our X basis and our Y basis vectors. And we're going to need to calculate those and then pass them in. So let's go ahead and start calculating them. And it's going to be inside of our construction script, set up our shader variables. Let's get our transformation. So let's get our actor transform. And we're going to do a transform vector. Is it going to be rotate vector? returns the result of vector A rotated by vector B. Alright, well, let's look at our sky spheres construction script. I think we have our setup align light. Yeah, we have this like celestial rotator, break rotator, make rotator sort of crap, but is this in our construction script then? Celestial rotator. Make rotator out of this thing. Yeah, okay, so we're doing this based on some other stuff. Alright, so we don't need that. Have I ever played City of Heroes back when it's still around? No, I did not. I haven't actually played a whole bunch of MMOs. So we're going to be setting our vector parameter value. So we're going to have x basis and our y basis. And perhaps I should not call them these. I should call them like our u basis and our v basis, because they're used for textures. So why don't we just do that? U basis and v basis. So our u basis is our y-axis, so it looks like this. We're going to rotate 0, 1, 0, and we are going to plug it in here, like so. And then we're going to rotate our other vector, which would be 0, 0, 1, and we are going to shove it into this guy. And this is just linear algebra, change of basis sort of stuff, so nothing too complicated. Hopefully I won't screw it up then. And then tear my hair out of it like, what the fuck? How come up is down and down is up? This is bullshit. I hate math. I hate life. Why did I become an engineer? This is just a really bad idea. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to what we need to do for each one of these, why don't we just do it one at a time. So we'll do one of these, and basically we're going to break out a float 3. Actually no, we're going to, yeah, okay, I need to get our thing here. This is going to be our U basis default of 0, 1, 0, and we're going to I guess do a multiply. These two together. Let's swap these things real quick. And then we're going to break out a float 3 from that. And then we're going to add them together. And how come there's not a multi-pin add? It seems like an oversight. Your take on water? You've been working on some rain effects? Yeah. Well, ripples are something that we're going to be working on next. There's a couple of ways that we're going to be thinking about adding ripples to the surface of the water. And one of them is, like we're going to see. But that looks pretty cool. Alright, so for this to work, we're going to add these together, and this should be the exact same value right here. So we should see no change in this thing. Because what's happening is we're multiplying these and adding them together, and our basis value is going to negate everything that's garbage. And then everything that was, nothing else was actually using this. So our change of basis should work properly for the U. So for the V, we're going to need to get the V basis, which is going to be 0, 0, 1, and then we're going to need to multiply this value by this value, and then we're going to need to break out the float 3 component and add all the values together. And then hook it into what here? So this should look exactly the same as before. Awesome, cool. So what about these other ones? I guess we have to do the same thing for these guys. We need to again compute the V basis and U basis for both the bottom left and bottom rights. So let's try doing this all over again. So multiply this bottom left by our U basis. Break out the float 3 component from it. And then add them together. Is there an add float 3? Alright, so add components. Input a float 2 or 3 and retrieve the sum of the component values. Alright, so we already have this sort of add thing here. So we throw in a float 3 and then take the float 3 out. So we can do something like this. Let's just make sure it works. Yes, it appears to work. Okay, so we don't need to do this. We can just take this float 3